Okay, it's getting close. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up my desk a little here. Okay, today we're gonna look around. Let me go to the desktop for a second, and we're gonna look at the SKR 1.4. It's one of the simpler boards to set up for the issues that people might be seeing with the new version of Marlin. So I'm going to show you real quick how to download it. So let me go over to the desktop for a second. So if we bring up the browser and we go to the Marlin webpage, we can click on download and then download the current build, which is 2.1. Now if you need to check what's going on with the current build, you can see release notes over in here, which will show you basically what you're working with. So there's going to be some new features. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to test them on the fly right away, but we're going to see what's going on with new boards. It looks like there's a couple that have been added. I don't have, obviously, these boards. I might have that, but I don't think so. So let's see what we got here. So I'm going to have a hard time seeing your questions. So if you type it in the chat, I might see it. You can also type it into Discord. And I'll show you Discord real quick. The link should be in the description of the actual video. So I'm probably going to examine something that we saw earlier today here. So I'm going to pull both these down, and we'll examine these in a second. This is an individual user having an issue, and we'll see if we can figure out some strategies to figure it out. So if you want to type something in the chat and let me know if you're there, because I can't see numbers very well in this particular configuration, but I think there's several people in the chat. Let me see if I can peek in myself. Yeah, so it looks like there's at least 3 people in there right now. Obviously, I'm not on my regular schedule for doing this, but let's see what we got here. So if we go over to here, you can see the downloads that I pulled from Discord. And then over here, we have the actual Marlin that I just pulled down. So I'm going to extract that. And one of the issues that we were seeing was someone was unable to get their access to STEP using a TMC 2209 in UART mode. So I'm going to take you back over in a second to look at the actual camera of it. Give me a second here to see what I'm doing, because obviously my interface is all over the place for what I'm seeing. But let me bring up this over here, and we'll see how this is going. So this is almost downloaded, so I'm going to have to find a stepper. So I believe I have one on the desktop here. It's actually the TMC 2209 version 1.2. Now I have the newer ones that just came in. So let me spin around and see if I can pull those out as well. So this is going to take me a second because I've got it in my drawer. Hopefully I've got the right one. Yeah, it's version 1.3. So this one just came in the mail the other day because I ordered it just in case. So I'm going to put that out so you can see it in just a second. So let me move this over to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. So essentially we're going to be working with the SKR version 1.4. So let me see if I can zoom in a little so you can see it. So you can see it's a 1.4. I'm going to zoom out a little so you can see what I'm about to do. So we have to set up UART. So in order to set up UART, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to go over to the desktop and we're going to have to get the manual. So I'll show you that now. So if we're over here, we're going to type BTT in GitHub. We're going to go over here. We're then going to go to repositories, and this should be the same for every board, but you're going to have to type obviously the name of your board. So I'm not seeing it there, but let's see what we've got. SKR 1.3. So I'm guessing it's going to be hidden in here. There it is. So we're going to see the manual right here, and I think they changed the structure so that I have to scroll through in a funky kind of way. Maybe not, we'll see. Yep. So if you scroll down a little bit further, you can see that the UART pin is going to have to be set with a jumper cap. And we're going to be doing sensorless homing, so we're not going to clip the pin. So let's go back over to the desktop for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out the pin if I need to on my X stepper. Now, in this case, it looks like I only have one in there. So I'm going to pop that back in because I think it was in the right space. And I'm going to push that down. Then I'm going to take the newer stepper. Obviously, the colors designate where it's going to go. And I'm going to rotate it like so and insert it. So we're set there. Now I got to make sure that I plug it in correctly because I think it's right here. And we've got that set. Now what we need to do is set the power. And if you haven't heard me actually say this before, I'm going to check my ports. Obviously I've colored them already. I think it's this one or this one. It's been a while since I've used the board. So I'm going to go back over to the actual desktop for a second and check that. So the easiest way to do this for me is to go over to hardware. And then I'm going to go to, I think it's the top view, and it says power. So the plus side is over here, the minus side is over here. So red is going to be plus, so let's go back over to the actual camera, and I'm going to insert this like so. I'm going to have to unscrew this probably. Slide in my ferruled connector, tighten it down, pull on it just to make sure it's in the right place, and then do the same for the other one, which might be fun. Hang on a second here. Probably have to do them both at the same time here. Not using this board in ages, and doing it live is good times. So those are in. Let's tighten these down and see if they work. And the ferrule basically keeps the wires in alignment so that you don't accidentally short circuit something. So I'm not running with the cooling fins at the moment. And the reason for that is because I'm not going to be running it very long. But normally you'd use the cooling fins and a cooling fan to keep your steppers nice and cool to preserve them. The other thing that you need to know is that when you're using the jumper cap, it has to be in the right position. So when it's on direct power, you're going to have a different setting. So let's double check that as well real quick. So if we go back over to the actual desktop, you can see that there's going to be a USB and then there's going to be power. So let's go back over to the desk and I'm going to pull this and insert it over here. Then I got to run an actual USB to this so we can communicate with it. So I'll plug it in here and obviously it's not powering. If I were to do USB power without the steppers, I could do this. And you should hear a beep when it connects. When I do this, we got to plug it in. So on this one, we're in good shape because we have a actual USB, or excuse me, an SD card in here already. So I'm going to plug that in because we can communicate with that simply. So the board should, in theory, power up if I plugged in the right power. So let's see what's going on here. So apparently I don't have power, or I cooked the board, but we'll check that in a second. So it looks like I hooked it in incorrectly. Good thing is that I hooked it into the bed, so I may not have fried the board, but it's hard for me to see at an angle, obviously, when I'm doing this. So let me unscrew this because that's probably the issue. Let me make sure that they're in the right places. Okay, let me double check by looking at the side view. Let me plug that in and the board powers. So hopefully we didn't cook anything. So let's go over to VS Code and see what's going on. So I'm going to bring it back over to the desktop. I'm going to bring up VS Code. I'm going to click on the browser, go to the downloads, open up the first and then the second folder and select folder. So what we're trying to configure here is actually going to be the actual TMC2209. So first step is you go to Marlin, source, core, boards.h, search on SKR 1.4, and then copy it. Now I'm not using the turbo version in this case, which would be the next processor down, which is this one. So I'm going to not worry about that for the moment. I'm going to now go over to configuration.h and I'm going to scroll down to where the actual board definition needs to be pasted and paste it in there. Then I'm going to change the board number to -1 so that I can communicate with the board. And then I have to change the platform IO.ini for the default environment. Now the INI is up here, but I already know it's the LPC 1768 for the non-turbo version. So I'm just going to do a test compile by first doing a clean, and then I'm going to do a build, which is the checkbox. Now if you haven't noticed, over in here, the actual drive shows up from the last good build that I had back in April. So if this works where we actually build correctly, we'll first test to see if it loads over there. And if it does, then we'll go and we'll set the setting for the actual stepper. So I'm going to check on the chat and see if there's any comments, which looks like there are. So Sir Stealthy says, hey, if it helps any, I have an MKS version 2.0. I think I have one as well. But usually there's similar boards. I believe the MKS 2.0 might be, depending upon which board it is, because I think it's the MakerBase MKS. It's the 8-bit versus 32. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to test, obviously, on the SKR, because it's the most common board that was out there at one point. And it's also the cheapest, so if I break it, I'm not too worried. So we know it's built, so let's test to see if this actually goes across. And by the way, if you want to ever check what the version number is of your actual config files, it's right here. It's 2.1.2 in this case. Other cases, I mean, if it says 1, then it's a different one. But that's how you can actually figure out what they are. So let's see what we got here. So it looks like it actually loaded. So let's check and see what it says. So it actually did load. Or it actually just copied over, pardon me. If it were to load correctly, what we'll do is we'll actually power it down, and I'll show you that real quick. I just need to transition over to the desk. I'm gonna remove the power. So you can see that the power is now disconnected. Now I'm gonna reconnect it. And then what we'll do is we'll go back over to the actual desktop. And on the desktop, I'm going to bring up the actual folder again. And as you can see, it just loaded. So this worked. It replaced the other .cur. And you can see the date changed for the cursor type file. Even though it's not a cursor type file, that's what they call it. It means current in this case. And many people will debate with me about that, but that's the way it is. So now that we've got that set, let's set up the actual stepper. So I'm going to search on A4988. I'm going to find the stepper over here, which is the TMC 2209, copy that, and then paste it here. So now we've got that set. Remember down here, there's a setting for steps per millimeter, unless they renamed it. So let me search on it because apparently it might be in a different place. Steps per unit. So right now it's 80 steps. Now this can be different, but we'll see. First we'll do the default version. So I'm going to search on 800 to see if I can find the X stepper. And if it's set up correctly, what should happen is this should appear as enabled. So currently it doesn't. I don't know why that is. So there's something wrong right here because I tested it earlier today and it did work. But maybe I'm just misreading it. So let's go back over here and see what's going on. So I believe it's up here unless they moved it on me. And it might be way up here. So we're just going to search from the top. So A4988. So it is changed. So I'm going to do a quick save and see if that fixes it. Or I'm in the wrong spot over here, because normally this will be not grayed out. Or I'm in the wrong place. So let's search on 800. And it looks like that's where we're supposed to be. So there's something weird going on. At the moment, though, I'm not going to freak out about it yet. Because we know that it has Trinamic. So we might roll back to another version just to see. but I think this is correct. Let's see, with serial UART. Okay, that depends on the board. So it does look like it's correct. So let's see what happens. I have a funny feeling this is not going to work the way that's planned. So let's do a search on TMC debug. And we need to enable driver status. Hang on, I got to hit the right thing. It's control/. That removes the comment. Then we'll do it again. And that will enable debugging for us. Then I'm going to search on sensorless homing, hopefully. I might have to go up or down. There it is. So I'm going to remove the comment. That should enable it. Now, the default value is usually about 125. It's been a while since I've done it on this board. So that, in theory, should be correct. So I'm going to hit the checkbox just to see if it builds correctly. It may have issues. We'll see. So it looks like there's an issue. So let's see what the issue is. No such file or directory, so I'm going to hit the checkbox a second time and see if that's just anomalous. Sometimes things build out of order, so I'm wondering if that's the issue or if there actually is something wrong. The second time, if it shows up all red, then there's something wrong. But it looks like it's working and they just have something set up to build incorrectly. So I'm going to send that over. And then we'll double check it to make sure it's there. So it just showed up. So let's go back over to the desk. I'm going to unplug this. Plug it back in. And then I'm going to go over to Pronterface on the actual desktop. So it's going to take me a second. I just need to pull it up. It's been a while since I've actually used Pronterface because I've been researching some other stuff. So let me get it so you can see what I'm doing here. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and connect. Now I might not know which COM port it is, because I might have multiple things connected. So I'm going to go over to Device Manager. And I'll show you this in a second. On Device Manager, we go to COM ports, and it's COM port 4 that's probably our device. So I'm going to select that and connect. It says the printer now is online. So let's do M122. And it says it's okay. So let's do M119 to check the end stop. It says that it's open. So let's try moving the axis. So the axis is moving. So let's try homing the axis. So it looks like it's working. So that's the first thing that I wanted to check to see what was wrong with the possible configuration. So we know that's probably okay. So the next thing I want to do is I actually want to research what's going on with the other file. So let me read through some of the comments for a second. Let's see. Just made a difference with that, with what jumpers had to go where. What is the difference between the 1.3 and the 1.4? I believe it's processors. It's been a long time, but I believe the 1.3 and 1.4 are very similar, as in boards. I'd have to actually pull one out and look at it. But they're almost the same board. There's almost no difference. There might be, well, let me grab one and we'll see. See if I've got one in here. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to place it nearby the other board. Hopefully you can see it when I bring it up. I need to move some stuff around here. So here's the other board. And on the other board, if you look at it closely, I believe they took out some jumpers. It might be sensorless homing may have had sensors at one point on the 1.3. So let me look at the board closely. So I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'd actually have to pull up the manual and look. But I can also tell you that UART is actually broken out. So you can see UART's right here. I believe that's the difference. And then they moved it inside and dropped those and only left the other jumpers on the outside, which are for a special type of stepper, I believe, closed loop. And then the actual settings here, I think they did them so you have to jump them. But let's take a look. So if I go over to the desktop, and then I go over to the browser, over here, go to the 1.3 folder, and we'll look up sensorless homing and see if that's a difference. So let's see. Here's the guide, I believe. This is very old. As you can see, it's kind of a mess because we don't actually use... well, they did change this. Originally it was Atom is what they used, so they updated it. So that's good. Let's see, it looks like they're talking about the BL Touch. BL Touch. So these are the ones we want to look up. Apparently they're talking about the Raspberry Pi. Yeah, this manual might be easier to download and look at. They're showing you how to use it in Pronterface. It's almost like they grabbed my tutorials. Trying to check for sensorless homing. That's why I'm scrolling back and forth real quick. That's awesome. Let's see, they have step-dur. Then they talk about these. Apparently I don't see the actual settings, and this is very hard to follow, but essentially UART's going to probably be the same, but it's broken out right here, I believe. Yeah, it says UART. And then this says X stop, which tells me it's the end stop probably. I mean, I can try it, I just don't want to smoke the board, because I only have one of those and they're hard to find. So apparently their manual kind of sucks, but that's just my opinion. But maybe it's I'm in the wrong place, and maybe I'm sucking at this. So let's see, here we go. So step-dur. Then we've got the UART mode, so that's different. And then where's sensorless homing? Lovely. Does their manual just end? That's hilarious. Okay, so these are the diag pins. This is sensorless homing. It's just not well written. But that's the difference. So let me check on another chat question real quick here. Let's see. perhaps you could also try compiling with my configuration files and seeing if it's the same thing that happens. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. But first I've got to show people how to do a file compare real quick. Let me see. Chris is ZV input shaping in 2.1.2. Not compatible with linear advance. I am unsure at the moment. I know input shaping now is in the current version of Marlin that was just released. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. It actually means I have to set it up on a whole printer to see what's occurring. So that's something I'll probably do maybe tomorrow if I have time. I obviously have to bring in my car for work, so hopefully if that goes well tomorrow, then I can have more time to look at it. Let's see. Hi, I wanted to offer you promotion channel, viewers, follow, views, chats, bots, price is low. I'm guessing that I don't need that, because I'm not too worried about having followers, because as is, you guys know I talk to you an awful lot, usually on Discord, which to a degree slows down my stuff, but that's no biggie. Let's see. Sweet. Looking forward to tomorrow tentative video. Yeah, there's a video in the actual queue that I finished. If you guys want early looks for videos, it's actually for Clipper, and that is up on Patreon right now. I just put it up there yesterday, I think, but I have about 4 or 5 more that I gotta still either record or edit. So those will be coming out soon. That also does input shaping as well, but usually I try and avoid the whole printer in a tutorial because I want you guys to see the individual thing that I'm working with. So let's get back to the initial issue that we had. And what I need to do is I need to go to downloads, and these are the 2 files. I'm just going to rename it slightly so that you can see what's going on. User, and then I'll put user on this one as well. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I do a file compare, I want to have 2 unique names. So I'm going to copy both these files, and I'm going to then paste them into this folder, and I'm going to do a file compare like so. And I'm using Notepad++ to do this, so you can see they're side by side. I'm just going to do a quick comparison, and this shows me the differences between the 2 files. Over here on the yellow side, I can actually see the differences. So they're highlighted in yellow. Like, I'm using 1.75 and the user is using 2.85, which is a unique size. It could be that they're using 3, because I don't know if they make 2.85 anymore or if they ever did, but it's still in Marlin, so I'm assuming yes. If we scroll down a little further, actually, let's see if I can jump to it. You can see that the user in this case is using a unique sensor. It's a custom one. Normally I don't use custom sensors, but there might be a reason that someone's using something that's custom. There are higher temperature sensors that exist. I think there's one thermal coupler up here that you can use. I think it's -4 that I haven't done a tutorial on, where I showed someone how to use it for high temperatures like aluminum, but that was an individual chat that I had with somebody. That was more of a help them out with work kind of situation. So that was, let's just say, more work for me than normal work. Then we have their bed temperature is slightly lower. Bed temperatures, usually you don't want to run at max anyways. 50 degrees Celsius is probably the highest you want to go. Sometimes 60, but I recommend 50. And then of course they have unique settings for their PIDs. But I'm not going to go into PIDs because that's a subject in itself. More PID stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this file in and see if it actually works. So you can see there's a difference here in steps. The default steps, this is highly unusual. I don't even know if it's a valid step unit. And the reason that I can show you why that is if you go over here and we look at the advanced configuration, I have to search on this. Is it 800? So right here, if you change this value to increase your steps to 0 to 256, that means you also have to change, let's see, steps, this one. So if I want to double the amount of steps I'm doing, it's 160. And then if I want to increase it over here because they have to be done together, it's 32. So if we increase this to 64, that means that this number proportionally has to change to 320. If we change this to 128, then this has to double again to 640. And if we double this again to 256, which almost nobody can use because it doesn't work that well, this will be 1280, I believe. I could be off on my calculations, but if we go back and we look over here, this is set to 2560, which I'm not sure how that number came about, but that's just one of those things that might be inside the file as default that way, which if you're using a sample config, there's a reason why they call them samples. They're not very correct. So keep that in mind. That's why I avoid sample files and I just configure using the actual configuration file. But we're using file compare so we can see the differences. And this one just comes out or makes it appear as if there's some kind of issue that seems different from what it normally would be. Different types of steppers might be able to get you to that, but they don't exist yet for people to buy. So now you know about that. So we're going to actually drop this file in and build it and put it on the actual motherboard. So I'm going to close this out for a second. I have to close this out. So I'm going to save all. Then I'm going to go into the folder and I'm going to name this to old. So configuration.old. And then I'm going to change this to the actual name. Oh, can't do it yet. It's actually this one. And then we'll do the same with this one. We'll call this old. And then we'll do the same with this one. If you guys are doing super chats, I can't see them. So if you're tipping, thank you in advance. Just so you know, it's hard for me to see currently in the configuration I'm in for chat. I can see your chats, but that's about it. So let's reopen this. So open folder. So we'll go to downloads, Marlin, select folder. This is going to come up slightly different probably. So it did flash something that freaked me out for a second, and that is auto build. I don't use auto build, just so you guys know. It's just one of those things that I'm just not into, and it causes issues, so I avoid it. Basically, it doesn't interface well with platform I/O. That's why I avoid it. Someday they'll fix it, but for now, I just don't use it. So, now that we've got this set up, we've got our configuration advanced set here, and then we have our .h. We can scan through the .h. I'm probably going to change one thing in here, just because I know already what I want to change. So I'm going to scroll through this very quick. I'm going to change this to -1. And I'm going to change this to 0 and comment it out for the moment with Control/. That adds the comment over here. If you want to take it out, you can do Control/ again. It's underneath the question mark button on your keyboard. So it's the control button and the question mark button, essentially. That is if you have the same type of keyboard as I'm using. So the speed I'm going to change. I'm going to make it faster. So I'm going to copy this over here. And so those are the only changes I'm going to do at the moment. So I'm going to do a clean real quick with the little garbage can over here. And then I'm going to do a build. And we'll see this pop in a couple of seconds on the actual board. And then we'll try and move the stepper. So it looks like there's an issue. Might be similar to what happened a second ago. So the reason this is occurring is because I'm connected. So I'm going to disconnect because it's trying to copy something. So let's try it again. Or maybe it wasn't trying to copy something and it just, I need to build twice like I did before. But we'll find out in a second. Essentially what that issue is, where sometimes you have to build twice, is that something will build and then something else will build that uses something that hasn't built yet, so it can't access it. So when you do a rebuild, that might exist the second time through. It's just the order in which they built it. For the platform I/O file, there's actually steps to doing a build in here, and they've got these backwards somehow. But I'm not going to go into that because that could be hours of me talking about weird stuff. But let's go over and check to see if it went over to the board. So it looks like it did. So let's power cycle the board real quick here. So let me switch over to the camera so you can see it. I'm going to pull the power. I'll plug it back in. Then I'll go back over and I'll see if it actually worked. So over here, it looks like it loaded. So let's reconnect to the board. It says it's now online. So let's see what we get for M119. So that looks correct. Of course, it does say we have the Z probe. We can take care of that in a second. And then let's do the M122. I'm guessing we're going to see a limited view. Actually, it's a bigger view. Now it's saying bad response for everything that doesn't have a stepper connected, which is okay because they're not there. So we're not going to worry about that. The TMC connection error might be an issue, but that might be because we're just missing these steppers. So let's now make this so we can see the actual configuration. And I'm going to try and move. So it's moving very fast. Let's try homing. So homing's not working very well. So let's disconnect and let's see what's going on. So I'm probably going to move things back to the defaults first inside of here. Let me make it so you can see it better. So if I go over to advanced and I search on 800, I think we're in the right area. So first things first, I probably crank this down, and I crank this down to 16 just to start. Then over here, steps per millimeter or steps per unit, I probably move this to 80 and this to 80 for the moment. And I'll rebuild this real quick and upload it. So we're actually just doing an upload this time. So it builds first and it automatically uploads over to here. So we'll give that a second to run and we'll see if it actually works. And then we'll power cycle and see how that looks. So I'll check on the chat while that's going on. So let's see. So it's not that people make mistakes, it's just making mistakes is actually how you learn the best. So keep that in mind. When you come across something that you don't understand, sometimes making a mistake and understanding what occurred helps you to understand it better. But the key is not to do the same thing wrong twice. So if something breaks, stop, figure out what broke, how it broke, and then go from there. Because if you don't, it gets expensive. So we know that firmware.bin actually copied over. So what we're going to do now is, hang on, I'm clicking on something here. I just want to see if something works. Apparently, I'm trying to see something in YouTube. There we go. So it looks like at one point we got up to a whole 9 people. You guys, if you remember to like on the video, we'll increase the audience too. It's good for my stats, and it's good for you because it helps offset some of the cost of me spending money on stuff. So let's go over to the desktop. Let me change this over. And if you're doing super chats or doing PayPal, I can't see it in the chat right now, so keep that in mind. But if you are, thank you very much. So I'm disconnecting. Now I'm going to reconnect. Now let's go back over to the desktop. In Pronterface, we're going to have to reconnect. We'll check to see what's going on. So obviously these are not connected at the moment. So let's check the end stops. We're going to also correct eventually the issue with the Z probe. I got to go find where that is being set, and I'll show you a couple of tricks to do it. But let's see what happens. So let me make this so you can see it better. So let's first try moving. Okay, that's moving a little fast. So there's another issue going on there. I don't know why it's moving 800 miles an hour. It's a little scary. So it could be something to do with the settings over here. So I'm going to disconnect. And I'm then going to go over to here. We're going to see if we can figure it out. So steps per unit. I think these are a different value. So let's see what we got here. If we look at the old, we search on steps per. Okay. So 300, 600, 3,000. So let's see what we got. So 300, I think it is. $600, 1,000. So this is 3000. So maybe it's that setting. It could be something else, but we're gonna have to try that out. So I'm gonna do another build and upload just to see what happens. And hopefully I can move this over. No, it's got a hold rate on it. So let me check on the chat while that's occurring. So the person that actually has this possible issue, what they might want to do is start from a scratch file and build it up slowly. It could alleviate some of their issues. Let's double check on what the current is for this. So they can't tell. So let's see what happened over here. So it copied over, so I'm going to disconnect, reconnect. So essentially I'm just popping out the cord for a second and I'm popping it back in so I can load the firmware. And I'm going to go back over to here. And let's see if I can make it so you can see it. There we go. So let me move this over. So let's connect and see if it actually moves not badly. So it's still moving like a bullet. There could be several reasons why that's occurring, but it's not a good situation. So it's got its hold current still on, so I need to turn that off. So there's something else different. So let's see if we have the actual comparison up here still. Crap, now I gotta pull it up. Give me a second here. Let's see, it's in downloads. So it's these two. And we gotta do a file compare. So the BL Touch issue, we might be able to fix that. We just have to find it. Obviously it's in two different places between the two files. So in the current config, it looks like it's disabled. So let's see what we got here. So I don't see anything really big yet. So let's see, temp sensor, we're not worried about right now. PIDs we don't care about. PIDs we don't care about. Extruder max length, it's a bit long. Normally I don't do it that long. Let's see, inverting, not worried about that. Let's see, end stop noise threshold, it's just a difference between spaces and numbers. Okay. That's in the old config, so that's no big deal. We got those the same. That's for XYZ. And And so max acceleration 3000 might be one of the issues. We got a difference here between the two. It might be that it's spacing difference or something else. So it might be this value right here. But let's look for the BL touch thing going on here. There might be something going on here in the jerk functionality, but it doesn't look like it's enabled, so I'm not worried about that. Let's see, S-curve acceleration. That might be a difference. And then we have Z probe. So in the current configuration though, I don't see it on. Then we have BL touch. Here's the actual BL touch. So if we go over here, we search on BL touch, but let's first adjust this value. What was it? 3000? And I'm not sure what the other one is below it, but let's just change that for the moment. And then search on BL touch and comment this out. And then let's do a build real quick here. And I'll check on the chat. Yeah, Sir Stealthy is saying that 2.85 is quite common. I've never used it. It probably is. It might be a way to lock people into buying a certain type of filament. That might be why they're doing it. Because it's usually about 20-25 bucks for PLA. The other types of filament, I'm not sure. So I'm going to double check to see if this has actually been loaded. Looks like it has. Don't know if you can see that, so I'll move it down here. And I'm going to disconnect the power. Reconnect the power. Move that over a little bit. Then I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to make sure that you can see where I am. And I'm going to do a disconnect, reconnect, because we're pretty sure it loaded. Double check the end stops. It looks like we haven't fixed this yet. So we'll look at that in a second. There might be another specification, but let's check this real quick. Yeah, still moving like a bullet. So let me turn off the motors. Disconnect. Double check the board to see if it actually loaded, which it did. And let's go back over here. Let me make it so you can see it better. There we go. So let's reload this. So it looks like we commented that out. But these are actually different between the two files. It's almost like this file contains information from another file that may have gotten copied over when there was a file comparison or something. But let's see, I think it's BL touch. Let's see what this was. Z probe. So let's search on Z probe in here. Sorry, I gotta bring up the search over here so you can see it. So there's no Z probe. Let's do probe. So there's someplace in here that probe might be specified. Might actually be easier for me to search in the file. So let's search on probe. It's an awfully generic thing to look for. Okay, this might not be the best thing to look on. There's 223 of them, so let's try end stops. Use B1 BL Touch. Interesting. So let's see if I can find it in here. Doesn't exist. So this might be something special that was added to the file. It might be causing some issues. Personally, I'd rebuild the file piece by piece slowly, because that tells me that there's some possible sample stuff in here, although I don't see sample written in it. But we still haven't fixed the acceleration, which confuses me. So I think this is also something special. So let's do this. Maybe not. Unless I misnamed something. That's just weird. So 2,000 or 20,000. I have a feeling where that is, but it might take a lot of work to find it. And I'll check on the chat in just a second. Just trying to get a understanding of what's occurring here. So configuration.h, and this is the old, which would be these. So 3,000 for default acceleration, default retraction, default travel acceleration. So maybe those are them. So let's go back over here. I might be misreading something here. So configuration.h and old. Let me do the comparison again because I think something's stale. Okay, so these are 3,000 in the old. So if we go over to here, they already say 3,000 because I'm looking at old. That would make sense. Okay, let's try and build that and upload it. Let's make sure we're not connected. And I'll check on the chat. Let's see what we got here. I have a 2208 stepper, but without solder for UART. Does it need to solder? I used the 1.3 board with UART jumpers. The newer steppers, in theory, should not need soldering. When I first got the steppers, when they first came out, that was an issue. They have fixed that, allegedly. So I can't say that you need to solder anymore. The videos that I made a long time ago, I had to hit it with some solder to get it to stick, because the actual resistor is the size of the tip of a pin. It's a really tiny black resistor that's 0 ohm. It may have fallen off during production, so you need a microscope to see it. So hopefully they fixed that problem. But let's check to see if this actually got over there. Looks like it did. So let me bring you back over to the actual desktop for a second. I'm going to disconnect, reconnect, move this over a bit, and then let's see, we need to go back over to the desktop so you can see both things, and reconnect. And what we'll try and do is do it again. And it's still moving like a bullet. This is amazing. I would think that I would be able to figure this out. So let's go back into the comparison. Let's see, this is different. Enable 4-axis rotation for IJK. That might be something special that somebody added. And then the jerk values seem to be the same. What's this down here? Classic jerk. So let's try that value next. So that looks to be a difference. And then S-curve acceleration would be next. Let's see, classic jerk, right here. Not even sure if this is enabled. And let's let's paste that. Do a build and upload. And then we'll go over to the desktop in just a second. And I'll check on the chat. Your config file is not really an enigma. It's just there's something in there that's set that's different that I'm trying to find. They may have made it for a special printer, which is a possibility. Also, I don't know what 3.0 is unless you're talking about the SKR DIY family. So let's take a look and see what we got here in a second. So let me get over to where it is. Disconnect the power. Reconnect the power. I'm actually trying to find the actual issue that's causing it to do that. That's why I'm spending so much time on this. So let's go over and see what we got here. So I'm going to disconnect, reconnect. I'll show you what I'm doing. So I've just reconnected. So I'm going to move again. And it's still moving like a bullet. Let's go back over here after I disable the motors, because there might be some heat being generated, and see if we can find it. So S-curve acceleration is commented out in the other file, so let's do that next. And let's see if this changes it. This is very iterative, by the way, just so you know, and it's by design that I'm doing it, because I may know what the issue is, but I want you to see how I figure it out. So now that the motors are off, I'll move that over a little again. And I'll power cycle. So we'll go back over here. We'll reconnect. And we'll try this again. That's even faster. Wow. So it's not S-curve. And as you can see, these are matching up now. So these, the difference between this is we have the Z probe enabled apparently here, but not here, which is fine because this is where we're actually working. So there is a difference here. I don't know what all this stuff is. This might be something special. So let's look for the BL Touch. So I'm going to comment this out and this out. There might be something special. I'm going to reload this so that you can see the changes. Hopefully. Did it not change? Let's do save. Let's see, this file's been modified. Do you want to reload? Yes. There we go. Sensorless probing. So this might be the issue where we're seeing the extra one. So let's take that out. I think I went by it. There we go. So I'm going to control /. I'm going to save on this and rebuild it. I'm going to have to disconnect in here. Now what I'm trying to do is fix that other issue. And I think that may be the other issue, being why we have an extra Z-axis in here. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. Over in here, we scroll back. This issue might be that. I don't know if you can see that, so let me highlight that again. Obviously, there's a delay between me speaking and you seeing. So I think it's usually 8 seconds. But for some reason, I can't see it. There we go. It's not 8 seconds. So your stepper is 2000. It's a TMC 2208 version 3.0. Is that the stepper type that you're referring to, DIY family? So I'm going to power cycle the board again here. Plug this back in. Wait for the beep. Connect. Do an M119 to see what's going on. And we now have fixed that other issue. So the homing though is going to be a fun one. So I'm going to move it again as soon as I move this over. Still moving like a bullet. So motor's off. Disconnect. Go over to here. Let's make sure we hit save. Go over to here and reload. Okay, this is Z-nozzle offset. That's for sensorless homing. So it's not going to be what we're looking for. Multiple probing. So don't know what this is, so I'm going to comment it out. So that is now gone for the moment. So inverting's not going to be an issue yet. So I'm not even going to think about that. Bed size doesn't really matter. Depends on the printer. Of course, this one has a huge Z-axis. Then we got something weird going on with the probe again. So I'm going to search on that. I think it's this one. Nope, there's two of them, isn't there? And when you see these things, like these defines, these are compiler directives. It's more of an advanced issue with compiling. So I don't want to talk about it, but that's why I'm commenting them out, hoping that I can avoid a problem. So save that, go back over here, reload it. Let's see, we got something else going on here that I already commented out, so that's not going to be an issue. G28 bed leveling, restore bed leveling G28. Don't know what this is. I know it has to do with homing all three axes after a G28. So restore leveling after homing all axes, which is G28 for the G code. So let's search on it. So I'm going to comment this out because currently we're not using it. Save that. Reload it. That's unchanged. Got an extra snippet of code in here that's a comment. We've got menus for the LCD, so that's not an issue. So the actual issue, that's display. That's display. Excuse me. Got an extra comment in here for LCD displays. This is old versus new. This is new. This is old. So it might be that it's a mix of two firmwares, I think is what's going on here. That has to do with display. And then the NeoPixel, which we don't really use in this situation. So let's go to the very top real quick. So what we've discovered is it's probably not in configuration.h. In fact, I'm almost sure of it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to go over to advanced config and see what's going on. So I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to open up advanced config and I'll change the video so you can see it better. Go to downloads, Marlin, go to the to advance, right click, edit notepad. Let me close these other two out. Do a compare. Well, compare. Let's see if I can do this better. There we go. I have two versions of the actual compare plugin loaded in here. So it's these. Compare Plus is the other one. So let's see. Thermal protection, not the issue. Let's see. Idle time, probably not the issue. Pulse width modulation for a fan, probably not the issue. Or PWM. So then we've got some settings for homing, quick mode. Looks like they're both disabled. Let's see, what's this? Doesn't look like the issue either. I'm trying to find something that, obviously this is something that's not normally in there. That's why it's giving a funky look, because it doesn't exist here. And this is the original. This is the one that we're examining. So that might be something that we'll have to examine. But it's set to 0, so I'm guessing it's not something we're going to have to worry about. Slowdown divisor doesn't look like it. Adaptive smoothing. So this might have something to do with it. So let's go look for that. So if we go over to here, advanced config, search on adaptive smoothing. I might be misspelling it. And comment this out and rebuild. And disconnect over in here, which it already is. And I'll check on the chat. And it looks like it's kind of quiet in the chat right now. Yeah, 2208 is, I pretty much understood what you were saying. DIY family. Version 3.2 though, for 2208, is it a Big Tree Tech brand or a different one? Because Big Tree Tech, I think, I have to look, is 3.0 unless a new one came out. Let me grab one real quick. Oop, I'm looking at the wrong version. I'm looking at a 2225, which obviously is not going to make sense. Yeah, it's 3.0 is the version I have. There might be a newer one, so they do upgrade them. I might not have it yet, if it is Big Tree Tech. But let me check on this printer real quick here. So let me put this so you can see what I'm doing. So powering it off for a second. The camera might click off in a second because it's on a timer, so keep that in mind. And go back over to VS Code. Move this over. Connect to it. And try this again. And that's even faster. Wow. So let's see what else we got here to look for. So that's menuing. Menuing. I'm not really sure what this is, but I'm guessing it's menuing because it says something about display. That's something to do with homing on a Core XY probably. This has to do with the SD card. Auto reporting. Now it could be that I changed something in my actual, well, let's scroll through this before I say that. Let's see, baby stepping is active. So maybe if we make that inactive, and I'm not pasting it correctly. Let me make this so you can see it better. So define baby stepping. And let's try building again. Let me make sure we're disconnected. I'll check on the chat real quick here. And let me look up that thing with Big Tree Tech. So if we go over here, at the very top, we can go out of Big Tree Tech, and then we can go to their sales website and see what's going on. So products, let's see, driver boards. So TMC 2208, it says version 3.0. Yeah, so I'm guessing it's a new board, spin, but I don't know where they got it from. Unless they're doing something weird with title here. So 2208, yeah, see, I don't see it as an available product yet, so I can't really say if it's something that's made by Big Tree Tech until I actually see it or use it. But it should be fine if it's Big Tree Tech. It should say Big Tree Tech on it. I'm looking at this is the 2130. So let's see if I can find the other one. Maybe they have a different photo. Yeah, it says 3.0 at the moment. So, oh, I'm sorry, you corrected yourself. Never mind. Anyways, let me get back to the board then. So let's go over to the desktop. Disconnect. Reconnect. And we're running out of things to check here, so I'm hoping I didn't accidentally change something like this, which could be the issue. Maybe I knocked off a 0 on it, but I'm pretty sure that's okay at the moment. So let's try this again. Let me make it so you can see it. Still moving like a bullet. Wow, this is good times. So let's go back over to the comparison, reload it. So there's a multiplier here of 5. It's also one down here of 1. So Z multiplication, Z idle. So I'm guessing Z is not the issue. Linear advance is also on. And then the values are different in here. Compressed length. So 0.22. So let's turn off linear advance. And let's go back over to here. Lin advance, pardon me. Let's rebuild on this. And then we'll double check over here. So that's the normal value, but we've disabled it, so it shouldn't really be an issue, but we'll see. Let me bring it back over to the desktop and check on the chat. So let's see what we got here. Unplug it. Plug it back in. Back over to the desktop. Excuse me. Reconnect. And move this over. And try this again. Wow. So it's not that. So we could change these values. It says something about the extruder. And then extruder, experimental, S-curve, acceleration. So let's try that. It's already technically commented out. Let's rebuild it. Let's make sure we're disconnected. And the camera just died on me again. So there it goes. Let's double check on the build real quick here. Okay, it just popped. Pull the power. Reinsert. And try this again. It's still happening. So motor's off, disconnect, over to the comparison, reload. Let's see what we got left. We got this value, but it says extruder. That's probing margins. Shouldn't be an issue. So the way that I'm doing this is probably super slow for you guys to see. This is very iterative. There is another way that's quicker, and that is to cut half the file and paste it in. And then if it happens in that half, then you cut that problem in half again. And if it happens in that half, then you've found which half it's in again. If it hasn't, then you copy in the other half. It's kind of like a bubble sort. But this is going to take me a while to find. And as you can see, it's generally not easy to find. There's an emergency parser on. Let's see, emergency parser command, low-level parser to intercept certain commands as they enter the serial receiver buffer, so they cannot be blocked. The current mode is... So let's try emergency buffer. And part of this for me is just learning new stuff they changed. So I'm going to build that, and I'm going to go back over to the desktop for the camera and check on the chat. Let's see. Let's see. I just try to clean config, set the driver's TMC, enable the sensorless homing, set to the right serial port, and nothing else, and still having the same movement issue, and homing is not doing anything. Okay, so the question is, there's a difference between our configs. The question is, what is that difference? So at this point, what you need to think about is what your differences could be. Are you using the same stepper I'm using? Is the jumper in the right place? Are you using the actual USB position for the jumper cap, or is it on the power position? Because that causes resets on the actual SKR board. So I would start with the basic configuration. Okay, I'd start with the basic configuration that you have, and I would use a brand new Marlin firmware file recently downloaded. Go through the first part of the stream where we set it up and test to see if it works exactly the same. If not, it could be a hardware issue. I don't like to say that because usually it's not. Yeah, so what I can do is I can actually send you the actual binary to try out just for your x-axis. I'm not sure which type of printer you are using. So is it a normal Creality type printer? So let me test this real quick, see if it's this emergency parser. So it's not building with the emergency parser, so I'll build it again. It might be that I'm not connected. So I'm getting a build error that I'm trying to figure out here. So I'll show you what's going on. So as soon as I get you on the right camera, there we go. So apparently the emergency parser, when I commented it out, caused all sorts of issues. So if I remove the comment and I build this again, it should build no problem. Now, this is what I was looking at right here. It's not on in the actual config advanced that I had, but it is on in this one. So there's something strange happening around this command. So let's see what this is. See, it just built. So if I remove this comment and comment it back out and then try and build, this goes to, it fails right away. So the emergency parser is failing right here for a sanity check. So if we hit the control button and click on it, hopefully it'll bring us to the line. So let's see what we got here. Parking head-on pause requires SD support. So apparently that's one possible issue. Advanced pause feature requires SD or requires support of LCD controller. So this is tied to the LCD controller. So I'm going to, at the moment, ignore this setting because it's tied to all the LCD settings. So that's not what we're looking for, I guess. So let's see. Serial float position. For serial echo, the number of digits after a decimal point. Don't really care about that at the moment. So this is a bunch of stuff about the actual pausing due to filament runout, I believe. Yeah. Let's see, park in the head. So this has to do with filament runout. Interpolate. Let's see. Interpolate has to do with the stepper. So this might be interesting. So in the old one, it's true. In the new one, it's false. In the old one, it's set to 256. In the new one, it's set to 16. So there might be a mismatch that I created. So let's go to configuration.h, search on steps per. Nope, it's not there. So let's search on interpolate. So this is set to false. So let's set this to true. Oop. Hang on, I gotta clean up my mess. Close this out. Gotta make this so you can see it, can't I? There we go. So let's set this to true. And let's try building it again. Let's make sure I'm disconnected. Yep. And then we'll double check over here. Okay, it loaded. Let's go back over to the desktop. Pull the plug. Plug it back in. Go back over to Prowler face. Reconnect. Move this over. Connect again. And try and move. And that's not the problem either. Awesome. So we got these matched up. So now we've got 16, which is fine. The y-axis shouldn't matter because we're on the x-axis. So where is this issue occurring? So we got an y-axis, but we're not using it. E0 we're not using. Let's see, software. That's commented out, doesn't matter. Chopper. No, but that gave me a thought. So let's see, 24 volts, that's correct. So we're on 24 volts for a power supply. Those are similar. I'm thinking about chopper now. We got something with the CNC drill here that we're not using. It's not in the current version. This might be from the actual, what is it, bug fix? That's probably why we're seeing it. Let's see, geometry report. That's interesting. Let's look for that. So I'm just going to copy this, and you can't see what I'm talking about probably, because apparently I'm on the wrong thing. So let me get you over to where you can see what I'm doing. So I'm looking at this right here for geometry. So I'm going to copy that, go back over here, do Control F and V, and I'm going to disable this, and I'm going to go double check what we got here. They match. So I'm going to rebuild, and I'm going to make sure I'm disconnected. If I'm connected, I'm not able to upload the actual firmware. That's why I'm doing that. I'd hold off on trying the steppers just yet. There might be a setting, but I'm going to reset to the original file change that I made. Back up your firmware.cur to your computer, just to avoid me making any changes that you can't reverse, because you can rename firmware.cur to firmware.bin in lowercase and reload it. But the file I'm going to send you is only going to be enabled for one particular thing. But let me get this set so you can see if we found the mistake yet. So let's bring this back up. Connect. Move this over. And it's still moving like a rocket. Maximum speed per axis. Let's try something like that. I have to turn off the motor. Now let's try it again. Well, that's the issue for that. So that's why I'm seeing a speed change. So if I go, or I do this, but this is going to go a long way. So it doesn't move as fast. So it has to do with set maximum speed. It might be in the firmware. Normally I think it's 3000. I may have to reload it to check, but that value should be 3000. So let's go back to my particular version, and you can see why I went through all these steps. But I'm going to flip this back to what I was working with. So I'm going to close the folder. I'm going to go back into the folder, which is in my downloads. Marlin. I'm going to get rid of this one and get rid of this one. Rename this one to .h. Rename this one to .h. And then I'm going to log back in to that location. So that's why I copied those over and compared them. obviously the comparison is going to go to crap now. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to rebuild this and reload it. Hopefully I'm not connected over here, which I'm not. And you can't see what I'm doing. That's awesome. So hang on, let me bring up what I did. So I went into the Marlin folder and I took out the other ones and renamed these old files back. Then I rebuilt in here, and this is loading over here now. So I actually have the firmware over in here, which would be under .pio build LPC. Inside here, it's right here, so you can't see what I'm doing though. Hang on, I gotta get to the right screen. It's gonna take a second. Apparently I'm getting tired. So if you right click, it's inside this .pio file under build LPC, reveal in File Explorer. That's the file I just created that got copied over to here. So I'm going to reload this and see if it works correctly. So let me go back over to the desktop, disconnect the power for a second, reconnect the power for a second. It's going to reload. Then I'm going to go back over to Pronterface, and we're going to see if it functions correctly. So I'm going to see if I have this issue. Nope. So there's something going on with the firmware files. I can't do a full comparison, but I could probably find the issue pretty quick by doing cuts of half the file. But it's easier just to redo the file. So let me send you this file. And I'm going to call it after this because obviously I'm starting to stutter. So I'll show you guys how I do this real quick. As soon as I turn off this camera part. So I'm just going to, whoops, do this into the chat and hit enter. And hopefully that shows up. I have to go to the bottom. And it's right there. So if you download that, you can check your X axis and see if it homes correctly. It's not set up for obviously Y, Z, and the extruder. Okay, so at this point, for the people that have been donating on either PayPal or join Patreon or anything like that, thank you very much. I can't see it in the chat. But thanks for taking the time with me, and you guys know about Discord. It's also in the chat. So you can actually locate me or others to help in here. There's about 20 or 30 people that are super experienced in here. And you can tell by looking at their profile for the number of level points they have. That means they've either been talking a lot or they have experience in it. But I don't know how to check it right off the top of my head because apparently I'm slow. But I gotta bid you adieu because apparently I'm starting to get fatigued. So everyone take care, be safe, and